All right, we are live on YouTube, and let me get the agenda back up. There we are.
In my role of recently appointed interim acting chair, I now call to order the meeting of the Utility and Transportation Advisory meeting at 3:34 p.m. And we'll do a roll call. Will the clerk please take the roll call?
Member Kress,
Here.
Member Williams,
Here.
Member Thesman,
Here.
Member Riggle. All right, we do have a quorum.
Great. And I think next is public comment. Did anyone submit a public comment in advance?
We did not receive any public comments, and there is no one in attendance.
Okay, if anyone in actual or virtual attendance wishes to speak, but I guess that's just members, so we don't need to do that. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So next, let's move to our consent agenda. We will, are there any items that anyone would like removed from the consent agenda? Not hearing any. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried.
Who seconded that motion?
I think it was,
Member Williams.
Awesome, thank you.
so we'll move now to presentation of reports. We have first up, item 3.01, a report from Mr. Fazzari, city engineer report.
All right, thank you. I have just a quick list of projects that we're currently working on for the city, GUV engineers. So first item I had on my list was funding applications. So Mike's always very proactive about funding for projects. So we went over that list earlier today. It's working on a Public Works Trust Fund application to fund the remainder of design of the Reservoir Number 4 project. We're working on that funding application right now. Later this year, we'll be working on some funding applications with the Department of Ecology. That funding cycle is usually August or October. We went over several stormwater projects that we'll be submitting for funding this year with that source of funding. Also, around the same time period, there will be a funding cycle open for the Washington State Department of Health. So there's some water infrastructure projects that we'll be applying for funding for later this year. And then also around August time, there are several Transportation Improvement Board grants we'll be applying for as well for several roadway rehabilitation projects. In terms of current projects that we're working on right now under design, under water, we have the Reservoir Number 4 transmission main project. It's currently about 60% complete. And then another project we're working on for water is replacement of the water pipes in 6th Street. That also is around 60% complete. Hoping to complete that project and get the design completed later this summer. For stormwater projects, we're working on Birch 4th to 6th. We're doing a lot of stormwater work and rehabilitating that roadway. We'll also be replacing the sewer collection pipe and sewer services as part of that project. And we're also tying that together with the 6th Street water projects that they're right next to each other and really making that one larger project. On the Birch 4th to 6th, we are about 60% design complete right now on that one as well. And the plan is to get it to the 90% progress point and then submit that to the state for review here this summer. And then that'll be one of the projects we'll be submitting on this fall to try and get construction dollars to pay for it, to hopefully build it next year. Also for stormwater, we're working on the design of the stormwater decant facility. We're just working on the conceptual design for that right now, trying to nail down where the correct site might be for that decant facility. For wastewater, we're working on the wastewater treatment plant phase 1 project. Hopefully we'll get that out to bid later this summer, once we hear for sure from the EPA Community Grants Program. Lift station number 5, we're currently working on the 90% design of that project. Hopefully the schedule for that will be to get it out to bid later this fall. And then the citywide cured in place piping project, that'll be for trenchless rehabilitation of a big part of the sewer lines in the city. We have a contract started. Hopefully we'll get approval later this month to get going on that project. And then regionalization discussions with Walla Walla have been ongoing. There was a joint council meeting a few weeks ago between the two cities, and so things are ongoing with the discussions about potentially some regionalization of Walla Walla. And so I think that's a summary of the design projects that we're working on right now with the city. There are any questions on those?
This is Member Williams, and I unfortunately was ill and was not able to be at the joint meeting. Could you just give us a short, what the next steps are going to be? Was there a subcommittee formed? Do they want this committee involved?
Yeah, sure, you bet. So at the joint council meeting, FDS group gave a presentation where they talked about basically three different levels of relationship that could be formed between College Place and Walla Walla. One of them being regionalization, where it's a true partnership between the two cities. One of them where College Place would just be considered a renter of Walla Walla's system. And a third one where College Place would potentially be considered a customer of Walla Walla's system. And generally they talked about the pros and cons of those three approaches in that, regionalization or partnership on the face of it seems like a great opportunity. But when you get down to the logistics, there needs to be some discussion about a buy-in. So if College Place was going to be 20% of Walla Walla's system, Walla Walla's already invested a lot of money into that system. So there should be a buy-in associated with that, trying to determine what that buy-in charge might be. Then another interesting point they brought up was in terms of the governance of that regionalization. Let's just, for example, say it was a 5-member board. Since College Place is about 20% of the flow and load, might only get 1 vote of that 5-member board. So how much control does College Place really have in that scenario? That was an interesting thing to point out. I kind of changed my perspective on it a little bit. So that was that partnership or regionalization approach. The other one, the customer approach, would be, if you remember the scenario we're talking about is College Place would continue operating our treatment plant the way we are now, producing a treated effluent, and that treated effluent is what would be pumped to Walla Walla. And so we would really just be using a portion of Walla Walla's treatment plant, not the entire treatment plant. And the renter agreement would be Walla Walla would come up with how much they would charge College Place for accepting that flow. And there would be no commitment necessarily. It would be like a month-to-month commitment, like a rental agreement. There would not be a connection charge to pay for. College Place wouldn't be buying capacity. That's kind of the simplest relationship approach. Probably not the best approach for College Place necessarily because you aren't guaranteed capacity. The middle of the road approach, the customer approach, is where College Place would be buying capacity. There would be guaranteed capacity from Walla Walla, and an agreement. And then, so there would be a buy-in charge for that, basically to buy a certain part of their pie, and a monthly charge, of course, for the water, wastewater load sent to them. So those were the three scenarios generally discussed. And there was not a committee formed necessarily to take a next step, but I think what would be good for a next step is to now ask FCS group to do a study to determine what kind of costs are we talking about for these buy-in charges? Because I think understanding those costs will help inform and help everyone weigh the risk benefit. You know, we need to wrap our arms around what kind of a buy-in charge are we really talking about? What kind of a monthly charge are we really talking about? So I feel like that would be a good next step. And FCS Group has prepared a scope of work to do such a study. I think it's around $50,000. And so I think we're at the point where we either want to bring this forward to College Places Council to consider moving forward with that, and also Walla Wallace Council.
Yeah.
And say, because I think this is the next piece of data that we need to help inform the decision. So that's kind of my overview of that meeting. Anything I missed, Mike or Ron?
I think that encapsulated it well. I think we're, everyone who was in attendance landed that is there needed to be an ascertainable cost for each of the options to then determine, even if it's feasible at that point, then to go into the committees and then visit some areas that have done districts, some areas that have done customer, and then rental. But really where everyone in attendance landed was that we really needed a grasp on the various options. What is that cost in essence? Because when we're pumping it over there, the thing that's important to know, and in the previous work that Alex has presented, we would not be using their entire system. So we would still be running our plant and just merely using essentially a fraction of it for, I believe, some of the treatment and then getting out to the irrigators and such. So likely the cost should be something that's very marginal, but again, we don't know that until FCS actually grasps and does that number. So that's where it's hung out at the moment. So I mean, really what I'm imagining is that it go to essentially council to do that. And then essentially as they're working on it, that would then, if council adopts it and then their council adopts it, it would then go to this commission to essentially grapple with, ask the questions. And then if that's an approved frame of reference point, then go into the joint committee between the two cities and then start ground truth. And if I believe that's where everyone landed at, did that capture it, Robert?
Yeah, I think so. I think the feedback that I've received is that the regionalization is likely going to be significantly more expensive than either of the other two options. And so, which doesn't necessarily mean it's not the right way to go, but until we understand the rates and the costs associated with the other two options, it's hard to really commit a whole lot of time and resources to dive into something that might be cost prohibitive to begin with. So yeah, while we're still obviously looking at the regionalization, we want to understand what the rates associated with the other two are to even determine if it's worth spending more time and money to go deeper. So,
So under the regionalization idea, did I understand that you said Walla Walla would still be running their plant, College Place would still be running ours? I thought we would transfer both of those plants to the regional authority.
Yes, that is correct. That's what it would look like under the regionalization
Yeah.
scenario.
Okay. And so that is kind of quite a different animal. So I guess my point is it's going to be really difficult to do a study that really gives us a comparison, because the rental one and the customer one, to really compare with the regionalization plan, you need to be looking at entire life cycle costs.
Yeah, so this study that FCS Group would do would mostly focus on the renter scenario and the customer scenario. Pretty much
Right.
exclusively.
But
And so,
how long of a time frame are they looking at?
well, it would, so under those scenarios, it would be Walla Walla would, the two would still remain completely separate. So Walla Walla would have their own system, College Place would have their own system. College Place would continue operating the treatment plant and then just pumping treated effluent to Walla Walla. And that pumping of treated effluent to Walla Walla would be considered basically like a large user in Walla Walla system. So Walla Walla would charge College Place a monthly fee for accepting that treated effluent. That's what the renter and customer scenarios would look at that.
Right, but to be a legitimate comparison to the regionalization, I think you would have to look at least a 20-year plan and see, you know, what is Walla Walla gonna need to charge for that over the next 20 years. As they do their upgrades, because, I mean, if you look at it in a very short term, it'll be one thing, but then if they start bumping up against their capacity sooner, then that could raise the rates quite dramatically. And so I'm concerned about comparing a long-term option with short-term options.
Sure. Well, so the renter and the customer model, they would not need to look at 20 years because essentially for the renter model, what FCS Group will do is look at for those unit processes at Walla Walla's plant that would accept College Place flow. What's the operational cost for operating those? And they would assign a certain percentage of that to College Place. So it's basically the monthly cost to operate this portion of the plant. This is what they would bill College Place for. That's what the renter model would be. The customer model would be that plus looking at what part of the capacity College Place really wants to own of those small parts of the assets. You're right, that doesn't really compare to the regionalization study. The regionalization would need a lot more data and a lot more assumptions will need to be made. But I think that's why the thought is, let's look at what these first two scenarios are first. And particularly what would the buy-in charge be for the customer model? So that we can understand what these first two scenarios would look like before we get to the regionalization, because there are a lot more decisions that would need to be made and a lot more information that needs to go into that decision too. Does that answer your concern?
I think it answers my question. I'm not sure it answers my concern. So I will obviously, when we get the, you know, scope of work and the reports, I'll be looking at those because what I'm really concerned about is if we pick a customer model and 3 years from now, Walla Walla is like, I'm sorry, we have to pull the plug because this messes with our fitting into our plant upgrades.
Well, I don't think that would be, I don't think they'd be able to because we would have bought capacity, so I don't think they could kick us out of that capacity.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
That was how FCS framed it, so.
But if they're under if they get an order from Ecology not to exceed a certain amount, what are they going to do? Are they going to prioritize us above their own customers, their other customers?
They would have to, because essentially, you know, if we look at their treatment plant as a pie, College Place would have a piece of it, and the remainder of it that they have for available growth, they can use that up. But since you will have essentially paid a buy-in charge, you've bought that capacity. They can't give that away to anybody else.
Okay, so it's more like a long-term lease than a customer.
I guess you could look at it that way. Yeah.
Because a customer, the company can go out of, just like our IT company just said, sorry, we're not going to do this anymore. So that's what I picture when I hear customer.
I see. Yeah. So in terms of the terminology, what you're referring to a customer is what FCS Group presented as the renter model, where it's just a month-to-month agreement. There's no guarantees. They can pick you off at any time that they want to. That's what they referred to in their terminology as a renter model.
And so I was picturing the customer as, well, we have to give you like a year's notice instead of a month's notice. So, but if it's more or less permanent, you know, like a 99-year lease or something, you know, concept,
I think it would be
literally.
100, I mean, I think it'd be permanent until we exceeded that capacity, so.
Yeah,
Right,
If we bought a quarter of their pie and that included, I don't know, 20,000 connections or something. You know, once we got to 20,000 connections, we might have to re-enter negotiations, right, Alex?
That's
Right.
right, yeah.
but
But-
we would still have those 20,000 and, you know, maybe we decide a satellite plant makes more sense or whatever.
Correct.
correct.
Okay, and so the other thing that does is it kind of punts the question of the collection systems. Because that's one of the giant question marks about regionalization, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And with this option, let's just say we went down this customer path where College Place bought a certain amount of capacity at Walla Walla's plan. In the future, as the new permits come out, and as Walla Walla does their facility plan, and as new regulations come out, if PCBs, which is the big issue that everyone's really concerned about in the future, comes to be, that might be a time to revisit this regionalization option. Because then you have a big problem that both communities need to try and solve at the same time. And then maybe that's when looking at true regionalization starts to potentially make some sense.
And it might be
think-
wise. I was just gonna say, it might be wise for us both kind of, if we could sort of coordinate our facility plans. So that when we do facility plans, we sort of check in as to whether regionalization makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And so Ecology right now is working on the permit updates for College Place and Walla Walla, and we're not sure when those will come, but Walla Walla is hoping they get theirs in the next year because in 2024 is when they're scheduling to do their facility plan. And it would be nice to have had this decision made by then so that they can factor that into their facility plan.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Melody, if you have more questions, I had sent you an email, if you wanted to meet with Alex and I offline next week. We'd be happy to have a conversation about this a little bit further, so,
Okay.
let me know, send an email if you'd like to, otherwise. Obviously, no obligation, but.
Yeah, because you had some questions and I don't think we were able to get through all your questions at that meeting. So we just wanted to follow up and see if you had any specific concerns to talk about.
I appreciate that. I was really disappointed to miss that meeting. So, although people are like, I'm like, it was terrible. I had to miss the sewer meeting and everybody's like, okay, that was bad. Why? But so thank you. I will check into that.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Good questions, good discussion. Mike, did you have additional comment related to?
Oh, yeah, my only comment was just really so we could even get to the point of regionalization or even pursuing working with Walla Walla. We really need to grasp this number, which right now we don't have a handle on. So that's what the study would do, because I mean, right now it's just a wild guess, honestly. So that's why we really need this FCS study. And so it's been worked out right now, but there'll be a scope of work coming up and hopefully it can get through so that way we can get those answers. Because right now, the only number for sure we know is like all the stuff with our plant for this phase one, but anything beyond that is frankly a wild guess at this point.
So I'll ask for any other questions from commissioners. Doesn't look like we have any of those. Do we need any sort of motion or action at this time?
Not on the
Really?
presentations,
All right.
just the action items.
Yep, okay. Very good, thank you. And now we have item 3.02, which is Public Works Director Report. Mr. McAndrews.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can tell, just with JUV alone, we have a lot going on. but so I'm gonna touch on some of the things we're working on with other consultants and outside of, not directly with JUV. So, well 6 is our well that is over on Maple and Whitman that we drilled a couple years ago, and we built the well house this past year. It's all basically ready to go with the exception of 3 major components that are back ordered from manufacturers. So a little bit of good news on those. The generator, which is actually the least important of the 3, has made it to the States and is supposed to be delivered next week, I'm told. So that's good. I don't remember which one is which. The MSB, the master switchboard, is supposed to be shipping this week. So it's coming out of somewhere in Mexico. I don't have a delivery date, but it's supposed to, I would imagine, be here within a couple weeks. The VFD, the variable frequency drive, however, has been pushed back again. So they're giving me a ship date of June 30th at this point. They have, however, indicated that the manufacturer has a date that they are expecting to receive the final component that they need to build that. And so, while it's discouraging, it's simultaneously a little bit promising. But that leads us into, peak summer months, peak water usage without that well. And so, that leaves us a little uneasy, but we've made it through those conditions in the past. We're doing everything we can to prepare for it and to be as prepared as we can. So any luck here come July or August, we'll get that well online and that'll be good news. Well number 7, which is the other new well site that's that will be down off of Teal Road, down below Majonier on the 5 acres that we own down there where we built our sewer lift station last year. That is moving forward. We've awarded the drilling contract for that to Gregory Drilling. They have until August of next year to complete that drilling. They had preliminarily indicated they plan to start this fall. They're kind of limited on when their rigs are available. But that's moving forward, so that's good too. Hopefully here in the next couple of years, we'll have both those online and our wells will be all very functional. We'll be in good shape. So I can't wait. Majonier Road, we're working with PBS Engineering on design of that. That's from College Avenue to Blueview Lane, so all of Majonier that's within city limits. This bringing it up to an urban standard. Designs at 75%. We're working with PBS and with WashDOT because they control the purse strings for some of the funding to move into 100% design as well as right-of-way acquisition. So a couple weeks ago, we met with put it out there to the property owners along Majonier. If anybody had questions and wanted to meet, a number of them set appointments, came in and met with us, and we were able to explain the project a little bit better. So I think it was very well received. So anyway, so that's moving forward. Damson, so from Cargill to Rose. Thanks, Mike. We are working with most likely PBS. We haven't awarded that to them officially, but we're in discussion with them to finalize design they had already started on during a previous project a couple years ago. And then to construct that, if you're familiar with Damson, if you're heading north on it, it just kind of jogs out and is gravel and is kind of incomplete road section. So that'll complete that road section. Will likely include an RFB, so rectangular rapid flashing beacon crosswalk across Rose, which will be good. And so we're working with them to likely move that forward. Rose Street. So if you head east from Damson along Rose Street, you get to the Wallula intersection. And from there to Cary Court, is still city limits, and once you get past Cary Court, it becomes a city Walla Walla. The city of Walla Walla is working with Anderson Perry on design and planning to go to construction next year to redo all of their section of roads. They're doing what's called a road diet, so going from 4 lanes to it's 3 lane building, 2 lanes each direction with bicycle lanes and a center turn lane. And so that will leave from our cars project, basically Wallula to Cary Court. Well, it's about 700 feet of city College Place Road that will be 4 lanes still. So it would be a pretty weird dynamic to go from 3 lanes to 4 lanes for 700 feet and then back to 3 lanes. And so we've hired Anderson Perry to work on design for us as well, to do our own road diet, if you will, to match, to basically combine the two, and then to transfer Walla Walla's bike lanes that are on both sides of the road. We'll need to transition onto the sidewalks. Again, we're looking at an RFB, so the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, to allow bicycles and pedestrians to then cross to get to the south side of the road, but we have a multi-purpose path. So it gets a little bit complicated trying to go from bike lanes on both sides of the road to everybody get to one side of the road. So there's a little bit of design involved in that. I think we've got a pretty good grasp on it, but there's going to be a little bit of cost. So yeah, we're trying to wrap up design on that so we can join Walla Walla with construction next year and kind of have a seamless transition when we do that. We got bids for our CDBG sidewalk project, which includes Southwest 6th Street from College Avenue to Davis and Southwest 8th Street from College Avenue to Bade. Bids were higher than we had preliminarily expected. And we kind of knew that going into the bidding from when we had gotten funding. So we were funded for, out of here, 341,000 about. And for 6 and 8, that came in at about 589,000. So we bid it deliberately with 6th Street as a primary bid, 8th as an alternate. So we're waiting on a final word from the funding agency that we can award just one, but we're likely just going to move forward with 6th Street this year. But that will include sidewalks on the north side of the road. It'll be a good project, and that'll be a nice sidewalk in the bill. Last big project that we're just waiting on finalization of some funding or some permits that are associated with the funding is our Lions Park project. We were really hoping to have it bid and awarded and be under construction right now, but we're waiting on some Army Corps of Engineers permits, Department of Ecology permits, the things that are associated with the funding agencies. As of now, they've indicated that we should have all of that stuff back in time for us to go out to bid on June 2nd. So that's our target date that we're shooting for. Get to bid in the first part of June. And be ready to award, the end of June, beginning of July. So. Other not big projects, but we talked about it before, Whitman and Academy, the flashing stop sign, turning that to an all-way stop. We moved forward with that. We have the signs in, we're just waiting for school to get out. I figured it'd be less impactful and confusing. We wait until school's out before we go change that intersection that's adjacent to the school. So that will be happening in the near future as well. I think that's all I have. Any questions?
So I think protocol is we ask each of the commissioners for questions. So Commissioner Testman, questions?
Nope.
And is Commissioner Riggle with us?
No, Commissioner Williams.
Commissioner Williams is, yeah, okay.
No questions. Thank you for the good report.
All right, very good. Thank you. We will move forward then to our action agenda. And the first item 4.01 federal classification of Southwest Homestead, Whitman to the end of the road, Southwest Fourth Homestead to West City Limit, and proposed east-west road, Murray Boulevard, College to Teal. And Mike, you'll lead us through that?
Yep, thank you. So as you know, so we can try to get grant funded anytime where we can pull it off. We try to federally classify roads. Now, two of them are in an existing neighborhood, and the reason why we're doing this is because the adjoining property, and it'll be moving through council soon, but there's starting to be plans put together for the Martin Airfield property. And in fact, they have filed an annexation petition that we're reviewing at the moment. So what has become apparent there is just so we have a catalog so we could go to other agencies for funding. And really, because of the way the Homestead subdivision was built originally, the intent at the time was that Dones would be the primary way in and out of there. Is someone that now lives in Homestead now, that's actually not how it behaves, because Homestead was the first road put all the way through. Everyone uses that now, so it's getting to be in beat up condition because the traffic counts on that are about double what is on Dones. So federally classifying it, that opens up for the grant funding. Now Fourth Street, what's a little strange with that one, so it's federally classified up until the point of Homestead, but then it just like drops off. And with potentially what may be going in over at Martin Airfield, it would make sense to get that going. So that's why it's written to West City Limits, because right now it would go to end of Homestead subdivision, but then when it annexes, hypothetically, that would carry it out over there as well. And then the third one, because we can have in proposed roads and things, we've talked about the Stone Creek Southwest area at length for a number of years now, and that's getting ready to go. And as such, there is going to be an east-west road constructed, part of it by a developer, part of it by us. They'll go from the southern extent of the high school, middle school campus, and then it cuts across Mr. McKiernan's property, then to the Lakeside property, which Craig Christensen formerly owned. And then it would end over by that 40 acres of school district picked up where they want to build a new school. So that's what the east-west road is. So merely, I'm trying to get a recommendation from this body to get those as classified roads.
Okay, do we have a motion that we recommend the classification of those roads?
I, Mr. Testman, make a motion to recommend 4.01 federal classification of Southwest Homestead, Southwest Fourth, and proposed east-west road to federal classification in the city.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we recommend approval of 4.01. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm hearing your aye, Commissioner Williams, thank you. So the motion has been approved, it has passed. I guess, I'm a rookie here, did we do did we second that? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Mr. Williams, okay.
Yeah.
So we're all done, and thank you. Now we move to 4.02, creation of Stone Creek and downtown tax increment finance district area. James, tell them.
Thank you. So this is another discussion point that's occurred over the whole last year. So just provide some Cliff's notes to the subject. Up until about 2 years ago, Washington was the only state in the United States you couldn't do tax increment financing at. So that put us at a disadvantage for all development. Then they finally adopted it. There's only a couple cities using it right now. Nearest one is City of Pasco. They adopted one to essentially get the Broadmoor development going on the west end of their city. So with us, what the proposal here is that to really get the southwest area teed up, there's some substantial investment that needs to be made, and really it's of a regional nexus, and you can't really put all of that on a developer when other people are benefiting from it. So, and the premise behind tax increment financing is that you have an expert do a study, which we paid Stowe Strategies to do, and they do an evaluation where they talk with the developers and get development agreements about, hey, in a 25 year period, what is truly being built, and then they extrapolate out the increase in the property tax, utility tax, all the taxes. And then they show the math, and in addition to that, they also scale it down where, let's say, only 50% of it occurs. What will that be? Even under 50% threshold, we're still well under that as far as the investment needed out of this. And where you get the money from is essentially you're trying to predict your future tax revenues. So the school levies aren't touched, but like for county and rural library district and ones like that, should this get adopted, the baseline that they collect now would stay the same. However, any increment based on that development in the geographic area would essentially be pledged for infrastructure to develop this out. And then the city can essentially pick two options, which is either pay as you go, but then really you're handicapping yourself because you need that to get the development going, or do the bonds. If you could click on the map, there should be a GIS map. So the GIS dash economic development district 1. So what we're proposing with this TIF district, and it's in this pink purple highlighted area, that this TIF district will essentially either help pay for part or all of 4 projects, and I'll go through each of them. The first one would be Majania Road, because the cost of Majania Road has escalated significantly over the last like 5 years, because we're also putting water, sewer, hydrants and all of that down it, and widening it because it's getting a lot more traffic, and we'll get quite a bit more traffic when the new school goes in too. So estimated cost construction on that is roughly over $8 million. And what the proposal is right now is that this TIF gets passed, 4.3 million would come from the tax increment financing. And then we're already doing good utilizing that concept of leverage other money. So for instance, Representative McMorris Rogers has awarded us a $2.5 million earmark, so a grant to help pay for it. The MPO has given us $750,000 towards it, and then we're going to go to State Transportation Improvement Board for about another $1.9 million. So we'll use that TIF money to leverage it to get the other grants. The East-West Road. Now, with the East-West Road, it's right around, I want to say around like 1.9 or so million. And the premise there is that the Lakeside Group, they'll be building the East-West Road across their own property. However, to get to their property, you have to go across Mr. McKiernan's property. Now, the city has acquired that right away from him. He donated it, but it still needs to be built. And that roadway through Mr. McKiernan's property in particular needs to be built at a much greater level, because that's the part that would be commercial and so forth. And then plus you would have school traffic going through there. So there's other costs there as well. East-West Road, the intersection of this new East-West Road and College Avenue, that's gonna have enough traffic where that intersection either needs a stoplight or a traffic circle. So essentially, we would have roughly about a little over $500,000 to out of TIF, and then we use that to leverage some state money to deal with that intersection. And then the fourth thing, which is if you look at the map, not only does it cover this lakeside area, but if you go north along College Avenue, you'll notice it straddles College Avenue, and that's for a key reason. When that road was redone, the big premise behind it was so you would have development going on and have a nice downtown area, which we've been working towards. But one of the things that really stymies us on that is we have a bunch of really narrow, long parcels. And when a developer wants to go do a project, right now, they have to do all the parking to accommodate the project. And those really narrow properties, the fact of the matter is you aren't gonna fit all of that in there. So, since I've been here, I mean, there's about 10 projects that have hit a brick wall because of that. And in fact, the apartments going in right now with 8th and College Avenue, the only reason that was going in is because we negotiated an agreement with them to essentially rent spaces here at City Hall. But we don't have enough spaces to go rent spaces for the whole street. So the concept is that it'd be over $1 million that would be dedicated toward land acquisition, because there's properties in the middle of these blocks that have easements at College Avenue that right now are weed patches. So if we go grab them, we could go put shared public parking and then waive the parking requirement. So the concept is to go acquire 2 pieces of property and build 2 public parking lots and then waive the parking requirement on College Avenue. Now, we're under a shot clock with this TIF because in order to get it through, the state treasurer's office has to evaluate the study and say, hey, you're good to go. We have no issue with it. They've done that and they've issued that letter. The second step to this, though, is that city council has to adopt the boundaries of the TIF district. So they don't have full bonds yet, but they have to create it as like a boundary by the end of this month. Otherwise, you have to wait a whole nother calendar year to next May. And I would also mention that Walla Walla is planning to do one of these, but they're actually a year behind us. So frankly, we're a race to see who gets there first for the commercial. They're planning to do one for the South Myra Road extension. But by the time they get that through, they'll be this time next year. So time is of the essence to get this through now.
And that's the proposal.
Yeah.
That we establish those
Yeah.
boundaries
Yeah.
at this time.
Correct.
So is there a motion then that we create Stone Creek and Downtown Tax Increment Finance District area, the TIF district area?
This is
Oh.
Commissioner Williams. I will move to recommend to City Council the adoption of ordinance creating the Stone Creek / downtown tax increment financing TIF area.
Thank you. It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been seconded. Any questions? Yes.
I do have a question. So I seem to recall that we could do 2 of these, and we were looking at doing one that was along Myra Road as well. What's going on with that?
So here's the situation. We actually have a defined proposal and working on a development agreement for this one, which is why we're pushing this forward. Now each jurisdiction has the ability to have up to 2. Now I will say with the other one, I have been in communications with the landowner of the property behind Home Depot. And I've been in communications with the landowner of Martin Airfield. And essentially I positioned it where it's like, come to us and whoever gets it first, that has the greatest public benefit gets it. And that has been a good tool because I'll just say with some of the properties, there have been games played over the years and stuff hasn't happened. And now all of a sudden there's a race where it seems like stuff will happen. So the second one, I think we could have the potential maybe do that next year, but it's not as critical because with both the parties, there's multiple things that have to happen. This one, to be frank, we're in direct competition with the South Myra thing, so we have to get this one done first.
And I am absolutely behind getting this done at our next city council meeting, but I just wanted to, my son and I drove past the site behind Home Depot and he's like, are they ever gonna do anything? And I was like, oh, well, have you heard of tax increment financing? And he was like, yes. And I was like, whoa, that's what a public policy degree will get you. Anyway, so at one point we had talked about doing some sort of a joint district with Walla Walla so that we weren't competing directly around that South Myra, the Myra corridor. Is that still a possibility? Is that off the table? What's going on with that?
So we are, but it's not a TIF district because the way that TIF legislation is formed, you can't really do a joint one with like two
Okay.
cities. Now, what we are doing is goes back to a workshop about roughly 6 months ago. And we're negotiating it right now. And what that is a sales tax sharing agreement. And,
Oh, okay.
and the premise behind that is it would be for any, it wouldn't be for existing big boxes, because each of our budgets are based on that, so that'd be really weird, but for
Mhm.
future ones, any big box over 25,000 square feet, and the formula, we're going back and forth on with them, but the proposal is that it would, there would be 3 components and it would be updated yearly, which is population, poverty rate, and the median income. Because frankly, each city benefits on one of those. And then the third one, if you look historically over time, has been a toss up between both cities. So that's like the wild card one. And right now their legal is looking at it, because right now Pullman and Colfax do, and Whitman County, they do something similar. But the premise is to try to fast track that through, because one of the big issues that we have had, like when we've done retail recruiting in Las Vegas, is that issue where both cities shot each other in the foot like 15 years ago about the Costco. You think those folks don't talk like 2 decades later? Trust me, they do. And we're like collectively known as like the 2 cities that shot themselves in the foot and ammo the Costco. So with the new city manager and Walla Walla and myself, that is like a key thing to get in place to try to prove to them that kind of shenanigans won't be happening again, but it's a sales tax sharing agreement. It's not a TIF.
Okay. In my defense, I've had COVID since then, which always seems to just completely erase my brain. And so, yeah, I was thinking, that's what I was thinking of, but I think I conflated it with the TIF.
Yeah,
So, okay.
it's 2 legal different frameworks.
And I
Okay.
have a question regarding
Yeah,
this
that makes sense.
particular motion that Commissioner Williams and I, made. Do we have to be specific as far as, I guess, preliminarily planning where these public parking lots are for this?
We don't have to be that prescriptive. You can just say essentially what you're doing, and
Okay.
it's 2 public parking lots, and that's gonna allow us to be able to do negotiations and not have the price on these lots get magically jacked up as we try to buy them. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Commissioner Williams, just a personal observation, and I'm sorry that you underwent COVID, but from your excellent questions and comments, it doesn't really, I'm not really buying the erasure of your brain matter there.
Well,
just
It
for what that's worth.
definitely, thank you. It definitely, though, clouds my memory because I'm like, I remember something about this. So,
Not a pleasant experience. It's good to see your face today. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. I don't think we have taken vote. Is that correct? So let's call for the vote. Those in favor of the motion, say aye. It is approved. Thank you. Now we have 4.03 on the action agenda, transportation benefit district revenue option, which is 0.1 sales tax, 0.1, and Mike, you'll
Yep.
walk us through that one.
Yep. So this is an item that's gone back and forth, frankly, as long as I've been here, actually. So this goes all the way back in 2017. One of the chronic issues in the city has been the maintenance of the streets. And while we do a great job at getting the grants and stuff for the roads, we're able to federally classify, and that's predicated on the traffic count, and then the state and the feds actually buying it and signing off on it. The local roads such as like Birch, 10th, Cedar, they really have a problem. And the issue is that in this state in particular, you have things tied to gas tax, and with fuel efficient vehicles and other things, that's been on the decline. I mean, when I started here, the numbers on that were around 120,000 a year. And in general, it's gone back and forth in the 90s. So you have your revenue sliding down. And then as Robert just mentioned too, like for instance, with the sidewalk project, a couple of years ago when we put in for a CDBG grant, that 344 was like supposed to cover everything with a contingency, and now it doubled. So we have the expenses doubling and the revenue going completely the other way on that. Back about 6 years ago, City Council went through the steps of creating the legal transportation benefit district. Believe it or not, it's actually on the books, and even though it doesn't collect anything, we actually get audited to it. So all these years we've been audited with like a 0 on it. They've changed the laws around the TBD in the last couple of years. So historically, what would happen is that you could either do the car tab fees of like 10, 20, or 30 bucks councilmanically, or you could do a sales tax of up to 0.03, so 0.3%. And that was about the people. The previous year, they changed the law a little bit, where for the sales tax, you could actually do up to 0.1% councilmanically. Now, both of the people is great. The thing that I just want to like throw back on, because a lot of people don't get that there's a cost to that. It's like, for instance, when the vote was ran to annex into the library district, to run that vote, that was $35,000. So I mean, that's a lot of like money out the window, frankly, if it doesn't go anywhere. And this isn't like that. We're like with the library, that was a fundamental question: do you want a library or not? This is like, hey, I'm driving on a road and there's a pothole and I'm angry at everyone for falling into it, basically. The thing is with the sales tax is that we have a lot of regional generators for shopping, and that would be a way for people coming outside of the community to help shoulder that burden, since they are driving on our streets. So the Walmart, the Home Depot, the Goodwill, all of that, they would help essentially pay into them. In fact, for the past 11 years, Wall has had one, and that's how they've been able to do all their streets over there. And what I was waiting for is, I mean, in historical years, we always had the knowledge of, oh, our streets were bad, but it was more so you talk to Public Works Director Hartwig, and it's like, oh, I drove here and this is where we're getting the complaints at. There wasn't really actuarial assessment to it. But then that last quarter, when you all adopted that pavement rating survey, where the folks actually drove it. I mean, right now, in main ways, because of the federal roads we were able to classify, we've been able to keep our rating in like the high 70s. But what it showed is that there's a cliff. And what the cliff is that with the exception of roads we just like added, we're now at the cliff of adding more federally classified roads. So you're going to have to deal with the fact of do essentially we figure out this revenue stream with the sales tax, or essentially do we just keep plugging away with the decline in gas tax, Meanwhile, the expenses are going through the roof the other way. And then you end up like roads like in Michigan where people are breaking tires all over the place and stuff. So given that fact, I mean, we did all the homework to create this thing 6 years ago. And I mean, for folks in the public, if they look at that pavement management plan, you'll see in the various options, it goes through systematically. Where like if we had the additional money, I believe it's like options like 3 and 4. Essentially, we would be able to tackle all of it and keep the whole system at the PCI is today, which is in the mid-70s. So that would essentially help with that, and we could then deal with the local roads. I always get a lot of complaints about like the dirt road of Southeast 9th Street over here, or Broadway or Cedar. So I mean, definitely adding things like this, it's definitely a discussion you want to have. But when you're facing a brick wall, what do you do? So that's why I'm putting it out there today.
Okay, if I understand correctly, the Transportation Benefit District exists. This is a recommendation to exercise the revenue option of the sales tax.
Exactly. So this is a motion to get essentially city council to do, because they can do it councilmanically now, which is a new thing, the 1/10 of 1%. So keep in mind, like $100 you spend at Walmart, that's like a penny going towards stuff, so.
Does that up?
Yeah.
We will entertain a motion that we recommend this to city council. Is there such a motion?
Yeah, Commissioner Chessman, make a motion to recommend the city council pursuing the 0.1% sales tax option for transportation benefit district.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second,
It has been moved and seconded. Any questions germane to that motion?
I don't know that this is really. Well, anyway, I think that one thing that needs to go along with this is a careful communication plan.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that it's really our place to get that involved in that as a utility commission, but I think that as we pass along the recommendation, we should definitely say, you need to think about the communication.
Helpful reminder, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the argument that all the people that come from other places to shop here should help pay for our roads is a really strong argument.
That resonated with me as well. Thank you. So let's call for the vote then at this time. Those in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye. It is approved. We have one more action item, 4.04, Transportation Improvement Board Grant Programs and Projects. Mr. Rizzatello.
Okay, thank you. So every year, the Transportation Improvement Board does a call for projects, and this will be due in August. So it'll be before you all meet next. So I basically wanted to get an agreement from this commission going after the various following projects. And then once we're ready to do the application, I put together a letter to support them, and this is authorizing the chair to sign off on that too. So for the urban arterial program, and I alluded to this with the tax increment financing, we want to put together an application. We met with TIB last year. And the reason we didn't get it the previous year is they unofficially have a magic number for this region that you can put in for, and otherwise if you're above that, you get thrown out, and I did not know that. Apparently magic number is 2 million and we were over that, so thus we didn't get funded. So therefore this year we're gonna put in one for 1.9 million and it should go fine. Then for the they have one for essentially improvement various modes of transportation for federally classified roads that need infrastructure for bikes and sidewalks. And there's two roads here that we got classified in recent years. So Southeast 8th Street, Birch to Larch, and that would be a restore pavement with an overlay and add sidewalk there. And reason why we have Birch to Larch is because we end up just getting an MPO grant to build sidewalk on 8th from College to Birch. So that portion will be dealt with. And then also scenic view. So basically large to commercial in there, and you can see the breakouts of what we'll ask for and what the match is. Then arterial preservation program. So this is a little bit of a deviation, but there's a method of madness here. With all the money that we're asking for with Majanier Road, the more I'm talking to these agencies, the more it's starting to appear that thinking with a lot of them that we're going to be able to ask for a significant amount for 12th as well when we're throwing all this money at Majanier. That isn't really jiving well with all the needs across the whole state. So at least to keep the portion of 12th Street going that is starting to deteriorate pretty bad. The general premise is to do like an overlay, try to put in some better lighting at the intersections and then ADA ramps, but deal with 12 from College to Sky to buy us some time. And then essentially later on, come back later, but the western portion from like Larch to Myra, there's enough stuff with that one. We should be able to get reconstruction money, and same with the Larch and 12th intersection, but it's just that part through the older section of town when we're assembling this money for Majanier Road. We could end up in a situation where if we don't do something to carry it through, we could get Majanier done, and then that 12th through the older portion of town could be rough for a while. So this is a way to try to balance it and try to get some money and make sure it's acceptable and buy us time. So this is a recommendation to go after these projects and essentially authorize the signature for a letter of support.
Thank you. You heard the recommendation, commissioners. Is there a motion that we recommend? And this is a recommendation to council, right?
Yep.
Recommendation to council. Is there such a motion?
Commissioner Tubman, make a motion to recommend the city staff proceed with the following projects and grant funds and permit the chair of this commission to file a letter of support. REACH, Urban Arterial Program, Southeast Majanier Road, Active Transportation Program, Southeast Scenic View, Southeast 8th Arterial Preservation Program, Southeast 12th.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Let's vote. Those in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, it is approved. We move next to the reports section of our agenda, 5.01, Walla County Broadband Action Team. Mike?
Yep. So broadband action team's been assembled. So Blue Mountain Action Council is providing the support to it. They're under a fast track to get this in place because by the end of June, a plan has to be turned into a state that prioritizes areas that are either unserved or underserved. So unserved is less than 25 megabits per second, and then the underserved is essentially under 300. And with that, there's the weird thing with college places, there's pockets in town, specifically the older section, where it fits that underserved. And it's actually areas you wouldn't exactly think, like the street right behind us, Birch, where I used to live. The speeds in there are like 150. So there's like these little pockets that are really bad. So getting this plan done is key. Now, one of the ways that we can prove what the speeds are and the flyer that's attached, and we're sharing this across social media, newsletter, whole thing, is there's an online speed test essentially that folks can take. And then it actually records the speed at your respective home. So we're trying to encourage everyone to do this because this grant that's coming down, I would argue that this will probably be the last time probably for like 30 or 40 years this kind of money comes down. So it's either you get it or you're gonna be waiting a really long time. So I'm trying to encourage everyone to spread the word about this because we need that data.
Good. Questions?
Question, so with the speed test comes also at the same time that I believe Ziply is starting to put in fiber.
Yeah.
So does the speed test take into consideration that there's changes in the infrastructure in the area?
I mean, if people are hooked up to Ziply, then it would. If not, then no.
Then, okay.
Yeah, and one, I'll just say some of my concerns, and I'm trying to encourage Ziply to deal with this the right way. Is that they're gonna be going in areas that, at least in my opinion, don't really have the severe issues because they're chasing customers where they know where the money is.
Right.
And unfortunately, with the Federal Telecommunications Act, and the State Telecommunications Act, specifically in this state, you can't mandate an agency to serve a specific area. You have to grant a non-exclusive franchise.
Right.
So I'm hoping doing this, knowing that there's gonna be federal money coming down, is gonna encourage these providers to essentially start covering everything, especially in an urban area like here. That's crazy that the whole city isn't covered yet.
Additional questions?
So
Thank
we
you.
should encourage and it automatically tells where you are. When
Yeah,
you take this test. So all you have
Yeah.
to do is go take the test. And
Yeah.
it should be everybody in the county, regardless of where they live, correct?
yeah, correct.
Okay, I'm gonna pass this out to our faculty and ask them to like put it up for all the students, because students live all over the place, and the faculty should take it too.
That'd be great.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that report. We've got 5.02 Walla Walla MPO State Surface Transportation Program grants.
So we were very successful with this, and I just wanted to update this body on the effort. So we're part of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and they get passed through federal money for transportation projects. In years past, frankly, we weren't as successful, mainly Walla and the county would get everything and we wouldn't get anything. However, this year we actually got the most. So Southwest Majanier, we're getting $750,000 to go toward that reconstruction, so that's great. Then for transportation alternatives, we went to them to get money to go engineer and construct the sidewalk on Southeast 8th Street from College to Birch, so they approved that. And then the third one is engineering and land acquisition only. In this project, is along Whitman Drive. There is a 2-block section in the middle of the community where the multi-use path just ends. And that wasn't a big deal before you had the Martin Airfield path and Homestead was out there. But now you have large amounts of population on both sides. And that portion on Whitman from Academy Way to Davis, the multi-use path just isn't there. You go from a multi-use path and then you either go on the street, or there's a very narrow sidewalk on the north side, but there is no continuation. And now that it goes that far to the west, it's becoming an issue. So that would deal with the engineering and land acquisition. But yeah, we end up getting 3 awards, so that was great.
That's good news. Thank you. Any questions about what you've heard?
Oh, and then one other thing, because I forgot I threw it in the same agenda item as this one too. The boundary of our metropolitan planning organization, there was some debate for some time. Maybe if you click on the adjusted urban area PDF, as to if we would have the population to sustain it, because when you have an MPO, you essentially have to have about 60,000. And the last census, how they dealt with it is they included Milton Freewater and that got us to 60. However, and there's like this little weird block group that connected the two is really strange. So this time, the federal government redid what they consider as an urban area. So believe it or not, Milton Freewater got its own urban area. So Milton Freewater is no longer in the MPO anymore. Luckily, the growth with Walla Walla and College Place was enough where we were able to sustain our own MPO, which is good. And I'm showing this area because when you draw a line around an urban area, you're trying to demonstrate areas where you can get the pass-through grant funds to improve roads, urban standards. And we were able to get them to include the area around Martin Airfield and then also stuff going out to like Old Milton highways, because you know, this map is going to be good for the next decade. So it needs to be a little more forward thinking, so we don't end up boxing ourselves in. The other thing to note, which is quite fascinating, is that the last census, the Burbank area of Walla Walla County was not in the MPO. It was in Ben Franklin Council of Government. It has since been removed and brought into the Walla Walla MPO. So now the whole county is in the Walla Walla MPO. And then there's like this little weird arm that now goes into Umatilla County, but it stops at the drive-in movie theater. And then now Milton Freewater is like on their own. So that is the new update though, but I thought it was important that you all know that because A, it still exists, and then B, our urban area, we were able to draw it around areas that we believe will grow into, and they'll help with future grants.
Good, thank you. Yes, Commissioner
So
Williams.
I have a comment and a quick question. How does the boundaries of this affect or interact with our urban growth boundaries, or is it just completely a separate thing?
It's a separate thing, but what I will say is I feel establishing this urban area boundary builds the case for, as we're growing our urban growth area, why it should be given to us. And that is a process we're working on right now. We finally got the county to agree to update the countywide planning policies, which is what held us hostage the last time. Not just us, but City of Walla Walla too.
Oh, good.
So both agencies are working with the county on this. I would hope that by this time next year, we'll have something to bring forth that reflects the current Growth Management Act and should benefit everyone here.
Awesome. And I would
Yeah.
point out that it's now Walla Walla University, not Walla Walla College.
Oh, oops. Okay, I'll let them know.
Important.
To some people.
Thank you. We have one more report, 5.03 complete street plan, blue zones. That's Ms. Brown, or is Ms. Brown with us?
Yep.
Hello,
Okay.
yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, I'm having some internet troubles, so I'm doing this from my phone. And I had planned to share my screen and that's okay. Mike asked me to come share a brief update about the Complete Streets Integration Plan that we've been working on for the last couple of weeks. We've been working with a consulting company out of Portland called Herbs Works. They've contracted with Blue Zones to do this study for the city. And the project will run from April until we've actually extended the time frame until about November or December. But essentially, they will be analyzing the city's existing plans, policies, engineering standards, codes, et cetera, related to transportation infrastructure, design, et cetera. And then essentially making recommendations in the form of some code amendments or amendments to the engineering standards, street design guidelines, et cetera, to strengthen the city's complete streets efforts. And I think I shared the updated statement of work with Mike, and it looks like that was shared with you all. And not much has changed except that we are now looking at having a site visit with them in October. And we wanted to make sure that the members of the team, the project team, could be there. And so Stanley Green and then Doug Logan are working with them and with me and Mike to, really help inform the work that they're doing, make sure they have access to all of the right documents and plans that they need, and then helping answer questions along the way. And so they will be doing a site visit in Walla Walla in October to work on prioritizing some locations. And then they'll also be conducting some high-level interviews in May or June of this year. And they've identified Robert, I think Robert's there in the room, I heard his voice earlier, as someone that they'll want to interview. So Robert, you will likely be getting an email from Elizabeth or Marcy to do that. They'd like to interview John. And then I think Troy Sewing from WashDOT too, just to get, a little bit more narrative in-depth understanding of some of the city's challenges or areas of opportunity. I think this is going to be a really cool project. I think it's going to help strengthen the work that the city's already been doing. Just making sure to fill any gaps that are there right now in policy. For example, one of the areas that we've asked the consultants to look at is standards for roads in private infrastructure. And so that goes for like residential subdivisions, but also Stanley brought up commercial too, like some of the roads that are around Walmart, et cetera. So yeah, like I said, it's going to be a really cool project. And I'll be happy to come back and provide more updates as needed and work with Mike to make sure that you all are kept in the loop. Any questions about the Complete Streets Integration Plan?
Yeah, can you define a little bit better what exactly that is?
Very good question.
On what that terminology means.
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's not initially the language that we had come up with locally for what we wanted. What we wanted was a plan that would help the city implement their Complete Streets ordinance. So the city of College Place has a Complete Streets ordinance. This requires that when infrastructure is built, that it also include infrastructure for walking and biking, and that it meet a certain set of standards for accessibility. So it's not just like a road for a private automobile. But when it's this one thing to have that in policy, and it's another thing to have the steps for how the city can actually implement this. Part of it's having the money to do so. So I was glad to hear the recommendation on the TBD tax, but another part of it is having Complete Streets ideology essentially built into all of the other pieces of the puzzle of building the design of a city. And so initially we had wanted to call it a Complete Streets implementation plan. But they've decided that it makes more sense to call it an integration plan, because the idea again is how can this vision of having Complete Streets in College Place be integrated into all of the other policies and plans that inform what our streets actually look like when they're built based on the engineering standards, the city municipal code, the design guidelines, and that kind of thing. So good question. Does that kind of answer what you were hoping to get?
I think so.
Okay. I know it's a little vague. I was like, whatever you want to call it, fine, as long as we get the work done.
Thank you. And Emily, we do have on the screen the statement of work and the detail. And it just sounds to me like our interests certainly align on this, Blue Zones and this commission.
Excellent. Are there any
Emily,
other? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
This is Commissioner Williams, and my experience with Complete Streets goes back to Seattle projects back in the late 90s. And they defined Complete Streets as it included traffic calming, it included making things walkable, it included integrated stormwater management, and there's one other thing, I can't remember what it was. So are all of those included, or is this more about looking at complete modes of transportation?
Good question. I think that there are different ways to interpret Complete Street. But my understanding of what this project is looking for would be closer to along the lines of having the traffic calming that would be appropriate for that location and
Right.
the context, the levels of pedestrian use and automobile traffic, in addition to just making sure there's, sidewalks, ADA access, bike lanes, bike path, whatever. Yeah.
And making it kind of making it possible to get out of your cars.
Yeah.
My daughter, when I went to visit her in Phoenix, there's a shopping area that is basically the sidewalks just end in the middle of nowhere. And if you want to go to 3 different stores, you basically have to drive from store to store because you can't walk from one place to another. And so trying to get away from that type of development, I think is how I would picture it.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say even it's not as much about making it possible to get out.
I think we just lost her.
Still with us, Emily? Nope, I think you're right. Well, a helpful update and report on the Complete Streets plan and Blue Zones work in this area. Any additional comments or questions?
Might be getting her back.
Hey, I'm sorry. I got kicked off again. My internet got out. But yes, to what Member Williams was saying, yes, it's also about making it enjoyable for people to get out of their cars so that people want to walk and bike and be out
Right.
in public spaces, not just like possible for them to use that space.
Yeah. We talked about internet, high-speed internet access earlier, so
Yeah, I'll take that test. Send me the link. I'll take the test.
He's working hard as is the team on that as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to say, I'm happy to support the city's efforts with communicating any changes to the transportation benefit district. This is something that Mike and I chatted briefly about, and we're happy to support in community engagement, survey, some publicity, whatever you all decide would be the most appropriate way to communicate that.
Thank you. I know that I really appreciate Blue Zones because I hear a lot of buzz, and it's all about a lot of different elements that different people were trying to do, and there's starting to be, I think, a real synergy where things are building on each other. So I really appreciate what your organization is doing here, and I'm really glad that we managed to become a Blue Zones community.
Well, thank you. We're happy to be working on this here too. All right. Well, thanks for having me. I'm going to hop off. I'll see you all later.
Thank you. I think we are at item number 6, closing items. The next meeting is scheduled for August 10, 2023. Will the new council room be ready to go?
I would hope the dais is already there, so
Yeah.
that's good. Then we're just waiting for them to put the drops in and get the AV system, so,
You'll let us know
yep,
where we meet
yep.
at that time. Okay, so let's see my notes here. Is there a motion then that we conclude this meeting?
Commissioner
moved.
Chesney. Oh, go ahead.
I move that we conclude, Councilmember Williams.
Thank you.
Second, Commissioner Chesney.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. If there's no objection, the meeting is now concluded. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Hey,
Thank
all right, thank you.
What I'll do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that I can.
Yeah.
Ask a few questions.
So for.
Here.